the parent, you are doing, your children are watching you. So over time, sometimes we imitate what we mimic some behavior from our parents. Sometimes in the way we eat, sometimes in the way we walk. Because growing up, maybe you have watched your parents walk in a certain way, and you have formed that habit from them. So imitation, learning happens through imitation of L2 forms and reinforcement of correct usage. So what does imitation mean here in contrastive analysis? So sometimes typical example is when we, as English language teachers, we tell the students, say this after me. Kofi is going to school. Then they say Kofi is going to school. They are imitating what you are. You want them to learn what you are saying through what? Imitation. So you do, then they also observe and do. And this is something that we all do in our classrooms, all right? So when the child does the thing and is not able to do, then you say it this way, say it again, okay? Because you want the child to learn those forms. Another example is in dictation. So you say they write, and when they get it wrong, you tell them to do correction. That is a reinforcement. Why do we allow our students to do correction? So that they can learn the correct form of the word. Then also we talk of error correction, which we just also, errors as a result of L1 interference and must be corrected to break the incorrect habits. So when we talk of language acquisition, second language acquisition, they are saying that errors are, according to CA, that is contrastive analysis, errors are as a result of interference from your L1. And therefore, whenever you make an error, they must correct you so that you overcome those incorrect habits. So if you have someone who says, there's also who went for an interview and he said in the spirit, he sees something and it's elo, elo, elo. All right. Some people say the person comes from a certain part of Ghana. Okay. But once the person says elo, 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 all right, it means that you must, you must, you must correct. You people made me laugh. You must correct the person before the before the person moves to, okay, Rosemary. So before the person, so I say when I was in the university undergrad, I had a certain mate, just to be mischievous. She had a problem with the R and the L. So, and listen to this carefully. So whenever we are doing presentations, a friend and myself, you pick a sheet of paper and we start writing L's. All right. So, well, and it's how to do with the L and the R. So whenever she makes a certain error, we write it down. Later, we make fun of it and all that. I realized that with time, I started making those errors. Okay. So you you'll be there, and instead of saying error, you say error. All right. So that is imitation. So as you are imitating the person, you are also committing those errors. As our people say, also be as all right. So sometimes it's the power of imitation. So I decided to stop, not to imitate any person's errors, or I should say errors. All right. So to them, whenever so it means that, and let's bring it into our situation. So when as we are teaching English language learning, and we want to use this approach of teaching English language, what it means is that already we are doing this. And that's why I said that is why when we teach and our learners make those errors, we tell them, we correct them. So I say, hey, don't say it like that. So sometimes the person doesn't know whether to use the past tense or the present tense. They use the present tense instead of the past, and past for the present. So you realize that you correct them. Don't say it this way. Say it this way. Say after me. That is what imitation. So one thing is in contrastive analysis, underpinned by theory of behaviorism, is that errors should be immediately corrected so that people don't repeat. It will do you a lot of good to revise your notes on behaviorism. It's a beautiful theory, all right, that can help us beyond the classroom context. It's a fantastic theory. Then they also emphasize habitual learning. Habitual learning. So it says that repetition of L2 structures is necessary to replace L1 habits with L2 ones. So in order to overcome your challenge in L2, you must learn. Learning should become a habit. It's something that you must do repetitively so that you repeat the L2 structures. That's why whenever we go, sometimes we teach them spellings, we teach them certain forms. We teach if it's past tense that we teach.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please
Hello.
go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please.
My my network was disturbing me, so right now that I got hearing of you, but I heard you were saying that as soon as the person make an error, you should correct the person over there. And then I want to ask that in case of the person is older than you, and then the person make an error, and then it is in public. At that instant, can you correct the person over there, or what will you do?
Okay, so this is a social issue and not linguistic one. All right. So this is something that has to is in the social context. But if you were teaching the person, so I'm a P language teacher and I'm teaching Ga. Sorry, I'm teaching a Ga P language. That person is my student. The idea is that you are teaching the student to master P. So that one in the classroom situation, we are talking about classroom situation and not or school situation, student teacher kind of, and not in the social context. So maybe the scenario that you've given, I don't think that it will be necessary to correct the person in public. Depending on your relationship with the person, maybe when you go inside, you can tell the person that, oh, maybe you made this error. It is not like that. But I don't think that in public, let's say your headmaster says something and you want to show your headmaster that on table, so you go and correct. No. So a joke is told about a certain big man, a minister who went to a certain school to meet them and talk with them. So this person didn't want to make any error. He's a perfectionist. So when they went back inside with his personal assistant, as they were driving off from the school, the personal assistant told him that as he was speaking, he left a certain letter in terms of the sound. So he said, "Oh, then let's go back." So they went back to the school. Crank, crank, crank. The students came, and the sound that the person had left was the sound represented by the S. All right, the S letter. So like, so the person went to the parade ground and started and said, "Okay, he has now added the letter, so they can go." So I think that in what you said, it will depend on how. I don't think there is a social issue, so I don't think that it's necessary for you to correct the person in public. I hope that is clear. So
Yes, I am
yeah,
clear. So thank you very much.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Please, I am
It's okay.
clear. So thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's proceed. Then, so we are done with the behaviorism aspect of contrastive analysis. So you see how behaviorism relates to second language learning. They see learning as habit formation. Therefore, second language learning is a habit formation. And learning is by imitation and reinforcement. It means that when you are teaching a second language, so this is how it's applied in second language learning. That when you are teaching a language, in order to help the person achieve proficiency, you must say something for the learner to imitate, to do. You do, they do, you say, they say. That is how, and it should be also done through reinforcement. That means if they make any error, you must correct them by telling them to do that thing again until they achieve proficiency in whatever thing that you want to teach them. So that takes us to the other aspect, which is structural linguistics. Okay. So we said two theories underpin contrastive analysis. One is behaviorism, the other is structural linguistics. So how does structural linguistics also come in contrastive analysis? So we will examine the core idea of structural linguistics. Structural linguistics, structural linguistics is based on the idea that language can be broken down into structural elements. So according to the structuralists, so we have the structuralists, all right? They believe that language, whatever language that you take, that language has certain structures, and that the language can be broken down into these structures, and these structures are the sound structures, the structures of words, which we call morphology. So that's the morphology. All right. I'm trying to get. So they view language as a system. So when you want to teach language, they believe that that language can be broken down into systems. All right, which is governed by rules. Okay, so into sound, into morphemes and sentence patterns. That's a syntactic structure. Okay. So they focus on surface structure. You know, in language we have deep structures and surface structures. So according to the structuralists, they focus on the observable element of language. That is that aspect. They don't look at the deep aspect of the language, but they look at the surface structures which are observable, those that we can see or hear. So they don't move into deep meaning. So that's later we talk about the shortcomings, and we see some of the shortcomings of these aspects of theory in contrastive analysis. So they focus on observable elements of the language. And what are the observable elements of language? That's the phonology. Phonology deals with the sound systems of the language. Then we talk of morphology, that deals with the word formation processes. That is how our past tense form, how our plural forms form in a certain language. These are parts of the language that we can observe. Then also they look at the syntactic structures, that is syntax, the arrangement of grammatical units in a sentence, all right, or in a language, rather than the deeper meaning. So the structuralists don't bother themselves with deeper meaning. That's the deep structures. They don't look at that. So in terms of semantics and in terms of pragmatics, they just observe, look at the observable parts of the language, the phonology, morphology, and the syntax. And they believe that to teach a language, you must break the language into their various structures, which will make it easier to teach. So how did structural linguistics affect or influence contrastive analysis? Structural linguistics provided the methodological framework. So the first, behaviorism provided the psychological framework. This one provides the methodology. framework for CA by enabling systematic comparison of language structure. So we said that the contrastive analysis people believe that to teach a second language, you must compare the learner's L1 to that of the L2. And how will you be able to do that? What will help you to compare? If you are comparing, what are the indicators? And that is where structuralism comes in, because they believe that you can break language into structures, into observable parts. So it is through the application of structural linguistics that the one using the contrastive analysis approach will be able to compare two languages. So if I'm comparing P as the person's L1 to that of the target language that I want to teach, which is maybe Ga, what am I comparing? So I'm comparing the sound, I'm comparing the word formation process, and I'm comparing how words are arranged to form a sentence in the two languages. So the structural linguistics provides a methodology for comparing the language in a systematic way, the languages in a systematic way. So you pick the L1 and the L2, you look at their sound structures. You look at the two, their word formation processes. You look at the syntactic structures of, so that it is through structural linguistics that we are able to do that, to do the comparison of the two languages. So let's look at the role of structural linguistics in CA1. It helped, it enabled structural linguistics, enabled language comparison. It helped us to compare. Okay, McLean, please go ahead.
Sir, please, we can't see your screen. You stop sharing the screen.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry about that. Just a moment. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. I hope you're okay now.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so yeah, thank you. So it is through the application of the theory of structuralism or structural linguistics that we are able to compare the languages. So it says that CA, that is contrastive analysis, relies on comparing the structures of L1 and L2 to identify areas of difference. So we are able to use the theory of structuralism to compare the two languages, that is the L1 and L2, in terms of phonology, morphology, and what syntax. So we are able to do this in contrastive analysis because of structural linguistics. It provides a methodology, the framework for the comparison of the two languages. So the more the structures differ, the greater the learning difficulty and likelihood of error. So this one we've mentioned. So if you compare the L1 and the L2, and the L1 and the L2 differ significantly, so we mentioned that Kamna and Bra. You see, Kamna and Bra, very different, but Bra and Ba or Va kind of similar. But even with this, Bra and Ba are similar than Va and Bra. Though they are similar, I don't think that there should be much difficulty if you want to teach someone that Bra means Bra in ever is Va, and in the person is a P speaking account and it says Bra. It's only a matter of removing the B and the and replacing them with what? V, which will give you, so it shouldn't be very difficult to the person. But it is less difficult if it is in the Ga, which is Ba and Bra. It's just an omission of the sound, and the person is good to go. But look at Kamna and Bra, very different. So it means that the person is likely to have difficulty in learning the Dagbani language than learning the Gan language. I hope that's clear. So we spoke about the contrastive analysis hypothesis, where we spoke of the weak form and the strong form. All right. So we'll finish soon, but not now. Okay. I know some of you are seriously eating, but you will finish very, very soon, but not now. All right. We're almost done, as you saw. So we spoke about the contrastive analysis hypothesis. So according to the structuralist view, languages are systems of rules that can be systematically compared. And according to behaviorism, learning an L2 involves forming new habits by contrasting L2 structures with L1 habits. These ones we have mentioned already. Okay. So contrastive analysis is based on these two assumptions. One is from the structuralist and the other is from the behaviorist. Prediction of difficulty. So contrastive analysis hypothesis suggests that where there are structural differences, learner will face difficulty, resulting in errors. This we have also mentioned many times. So at what point do we see an intersection of behaviorism and structuralism in contrastive analysis? So as we've already said, behaviorism provides a psychological explanation for why errors occur. That is, errors occur if L1 habits interfere with L2 learning. We have also explained this. Then structural linguistics supplies the tools as a methodology to identify exactly where errors are likely by comparing the language structures. Okay, so when you combine the two, what do we get? How do the two combine to give strength to contrastive analysis? So when we combine the idea from behaviorism and that from structuralism, we can say that errors are the results of learners applying L1 habits to L2, especially in areas where the two languages differ structurally. So where the errors occur, the result of learners' errors has been from L1 and L1 habits to L2. That is, we are applying the principle of behaviorism. And when they combine, you see that the first aspect, errors are the result of learners applying L1 habits to L2. That is behaviorism, especially in areas where the two languages differ structurally. That is what structuralism. So when you combine the two, this is all that contrastive analysis is saying, that when you are teaching a second language to somebody, the person makes error because the person applies wrong rules from the L1 to the L2. They do so because their language differ with the new language that they are learning in terms of structure. So CA uses this intersection to develop teaching strategies that address predicted errors. So when you combine the principle from behaviorism and that of structuralism, you come to the conclusion, which is the principle of contrastive analysis, that learners will make errors in L2 because they are applying L1 rules in L2. And they are doing so because the two languages differ in terms of what structure. And if that is the case, then they will continue to make errors until some interventions are given to them. And we talk of imitation and reinforcement, which are to help the learner overcome the negative transfer habits in the L2 learning process. So contrastive analysis use this intersection to develop teaching strategies that address predicted errors. Okay. What are the criticisms of behaviorism and structuralism in contrastive analysis? So one, against behaviorism. It says that behaviorism overemphasizes habit formation. So it says overemphasis on habit formation does not account for cognitive processes in language learning. So to them, everything is external. So when you read about behaviorism, their focus is on external factors that influence learning. They don't consider, so that's why cognitivism or cognitive theory was founded as an answer, or as it resulted from criticisms from against behaviorism, because behaviorism, their focus is on external factors, what is outside the person, but not what is inside. That is when they don't take into account the cognitive processes in language learning. They look at the things which are external that influence the person inwardly, but they don't look at the things inwardly that may influence the person's learning outwardly. All right. And also, L1 interference is not the only source of error. So we mentioned that according to contrastive analysis, all errors are as a result of all errors that a learner will make in second language learning are as a result of what interference from L1 language. You can't tell me that because the person comes from a certain place, he will make this error. Some people are from certain places and they don't make errors that their companions make. So you can't say that the person makes an error because of the L1. No. The person may be from the same linguistic background, but one will not make the error that the other will make. So there are other sources of errors, which is not only L1 interference, and these sources may be developmental. The stage of development of a learner can also contribute to the error. So I was telling your other class that when I was in classes, learning past tense formation, they taught us that all verbs, okay, form their past tense. Not all verbs, by the way, regular verbs form their past tense by adding D or ED. So they gave me a word, pay, P-A-Y, and they asked for past tense. You know what I did? I went to add ED to it. You cannot tell me this error is because of my L1 interference. So that I believe that in my case, it was as a result of maybe the developmental stage, because it got to a time after maybe I moved from first term to second term, I stopped writing the past tense of paid as P-A-E-Y-D. P-A-Y-E-D to P-A-I-D. So you can't tell me that I made that error because of my L1 interference. No, it was due to developmental error. So these are the two criticisms that were leveled against behaviorism in in contrastive analysis. Then what about structural linguistics? It focuses too much on surface level structures without considering deeper semantic and pragmatic elements. Language is such a complex system. If you only look at the surface structures without considering, so somebody may say, a lecturer said he schooled in the UK, and he said that some part of the UK, they say things like, I was sat here, instead of I was sitting here. I was sat here. These are not surface. So on the surface, you may say that this is wrong because the surface level structures, this has to do with syntactic structures. So you see that it's wrong. But in the deeper semantic and pragmatic elements, you may find sense in this actually. But if you focus just on the sound, the words, and the arrangement of the words, then you need to consider other aspects, which is the semantic and the pragmatic element. Meaning matters. And also, structural linguistics does not address the role of meaning in language acquisition. So to them, it's not about meaning. They don't consider meaning. So meaning is less of a concern. Theirs is to get the right structures in place. So plural verbs must go with plural subjects, or the other way around. Plural subjects must go with plural verb. The meaning is not important. Okay, so for example, that's why when we get to the realms of collective nouns, where you can either use singular subject or plural subject, depending on the idea, the notion of the speaker. They don't concern themselves with this. Once the word is singular, it must go with singular word verb if the word is a subject. So today we have looked at the two theories that underpin contrastive analysis. And these theories are behaviorism or behaviorist psychology and structuralism or structural linguistics. And we've looked at them in terms of how they provide the basis for contrastive analysis. And we have explained both the why and the how. So why learners of L2 will make an error is based on the principle of behaviorism. And how would they make those errors? Because of the structural differences in their L1 and their what? L2. Okay. Any question? Any question, please? Any question? Okay, so let's look at these self-study questions. How does behavioral psychology explain the occurrence of errors in second language learning according to contrastive analysis? Provide examples of positive and negative transfer. In what ways does structural linguistics contribute to the process of comparing languages in contrastive analysis? How does this comparison help predict learning difficulty? So if you listen to what we said and took down some notes, please don't just listen and say, I'll remember. You will not remember. You know, you and I know that you will not remember. So let's try to take some notes, ask questions, and as some of you are doing. It's encouraging the way you participate, but there are a lot more that we can do. Okay. And again, as I said, for Saturday you are writing, sitting for your quiz. Today is Tuesday. We are done with 2. We have 6 more to go. So if we continue like this, it means that by Friday we will have about, let's say, how many more days? 1, 2, 3. So plus the 2, we will have 5. It means that we'll be left with 3. I don't know if tomorrow we can start at, let's say, 4 there. I don't think it will be okay for you. Okay. I don't think. But let me see the next one. Are you guys tired? Are you tired? So they say, I don't think you are tired. You are not tired.
Hello, sir.
Yes, talk to me.
I don't know if you can take us through the second question. If you can touch on the salient areas, let's see how it goes. The second
Which
question,
one?
I mean, the one you have projected on this, the slide
Okay.
currently.
Okay. Let me see. So you were talking about the second question. In what ways does structural linguistics contribute to the process of comparing languages in contrastive analysis? How does this comparison help predict learning difficulties? Yes. And your question is?
Please, I like you to take us. How do we go about this question? Because
Yeah, so tell me, how will you go about it? If you happen to find this question, how would you approach it?
okay, so in my own opinion, I think
Yes.
you have to look at what structural linguists say about constructive analysis and what contribution they have towards uh, and how does it link up to structure and contrastive analysis.
Okay, so how does it link? What
Second,
is the role?
okay,
What is the role of structuralism in contrastive analysis?
what I know is that the structural linguists they rely on comparing the structures L1 and
Okay,
L2 structures to
to do what?
identify the areas
Why?
of difference. To
Exactly,
identify the
exactly.
difference.
Fantastic.
So by so doing, they are looking at the three main parameters. Talk about phonology, morphology, and syntax,
Yes.
and how three parameters play out uh, and how they contribute. But I
To
am looking at the second part of it, how they contribute in identify the areas of difference.
yeah, so I think if we said that by comparing, you're able to predict learners, the difficulties that the learners are likely. How does doing this comparing help? So when you compare the sound systems, okay, and the two languages differ significantly, means that you can identify the areas of difficulty. If the differences are not, they are minimal, then it means that they will have less they will make less errors in the second language. And when you also go to the morphology, if you compare the morphological structures of the two languages, the more similar they are, the less difficult. The more different they are, the more difficult. And you go to the syntactic structure. So you do that for, as you mentioned earlier.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
So
first
that
part, you explain what structural linguistics is. They focus on surface structures in terms of phonology, morphology, and so in terms of CA, how does this come in? It comes in when you compare the L1 and L2 structures. Which structures are you comparing? Phonology, morphology, syntax. And how will this comparison help you come out with the difficulty? It will help you in the sense that when you compare and the languages have similarities across the three structures that we've spoken about, then it will help you predict. It means that the learner will face less difficulty. But if the languages are not similar, then it means that they will have more difficulty. So this is how it will help you predict the level of difficulty. I hope that's clear.
very clear, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So the next thing that we look at, there are some parts which are not that much. So I'm looking at where tomorrow we'll possibly look at two, okay. So let's end on this lesson. We have done two. So let's look at tomorrow. We'll look at criticisms and legacy of CA. And you see the thing that we even do tomorrow, just as we did today, there are things that we've seen, we've talked about them. Just that we so tomorrow we've already mentioned the criticisms against behaviorism and structuralism. They form the same criticisms against contrastive analysis because contrastive analysis is based on these two theories. Okay, So the same criticisms will apply to contrastive analysis, but we still have to take time to go through comprehensively. So tomorrow we look at the criticisms of and legacy, that is the contributions of contrastive analysis. Then we'll look at introduction to error analysis. Okay. And if God wills, on Thursday, you look at 2. We should be able to look at 2, and maybe on Friday, we look at the last 2. If you are not even able to finish, I think that it should be left with just about 2 by the time we sit for the examination or the quiz. I mean, the quiz this coming weekend. However, I will entreat all of us to read. I hope the slides have been shared to all of you. So please read and let's engage. But you'll be fine. It's not difficult. You'll be fine. Okay. So have a very beautiful night. And please learn. All the best. All right.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, c'est au revoir.
Hello, colleagues. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I want to find out, are we going to do the varieties or? Well, Madam said something like that. There is no official communication to that on the platform, so I don't know.
We are all relying on the last one. You know, when she sent us the message that she was having an
Yes.
emergency, that's what we are all relying on, because she said either Monday or Tuesday. Then I came in to inform her that we were going to have a lecture on the Monday. So then we will conclude that it's today. So let's see if there will be anything like that.
Okay. Since it is not 7 o'clock, let's wait. It's about some 22 minutes to go.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Nora.
Is not yet in.
She came first week she was here. After she went back, she will come.
Sit down and drop it. So I will try for it. Time is past 9.
Oh, Charlie, these people. Another wahala. Another wahala.
I think you enjoy it.
Why?
Once you have your wife around with you.
How can a wife allow?
When you are tired.
I like to enjoy your teaching.
When you are tired.
Mr. Adam. Mr. Adam. I'm not strong, Mr. Adam. Mr. Adam, Mr. Adam. So the issue is that it's good for you to have like my case like this for more than 7 years, 8 years. I've been here alone. It's not good. It's not good because may God have mercy if something untoward should happen. How do I read it? How do people at home get to know? see nobody, there's no family member here. But if you have your wife, that's one thing that makes me to think of getting the wife. It's not about any other thing.
Yeah, yeah, please, it's closed. Oh, mute
Oh,
yourself.
I'm sorry, madam. Very sorry. Very sorry. It's very sorry, madam. I'm not aware.